And I really didn't like Korean. I wanted someone to look at me the same way they would look at a white person. I just wanted, people to see me as an American. People look at me like, you're Korean. Korea's a very progressive, in many things they're super progressive. And then a lot of things they're super conservative, and it's really hard to believe that those two things exist next to each other.
Hey guys, what's up? So what I've observed is a lot of my Korean American friends or Chinese American friends or other ethnicity American friends have one thing in common: the feeling of not being accepted as an American in America. And often when they go back to their parents' home country where their parents were born, they're not even accepted there fully. So they kind of feel they are kind of in the middle somewhere. And as you know, a lot of families have migrated from one place to another, and there are a lot of kids who are actually going through those kind of feelings. So that's why today I've asked one of my Korean American friends to talk about his side of the story, since he's living in Korea now, and what is he going through. Plus I'm also going to ask about his dating life here. So without any further ado, let's go. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
You said like you wanted to dye your hair today?
Right, actually my hair, I was trying to dye it this week, and my hairstylist is out of town, so I'm doing it this upcoming week.
Well, what color is it?
I'm not sure. Something more normal, like a brown.
Why would you think pink is not normal?
Something that's someone's natural hair color.
All right.
I don't know anybody with pink hair naturally.
All right, okay, cool. So, why don't you tell us about your background, like your parents, when did they move to the States, and where were you born and stuff?
Sure, so my parents, for all intents and purposes, they both moved around end of high school, right before college, and they both went to college in America, and that's where they met. I was born in America, right outside Washington, D.C., and I lived there my whole life until I was, how old am I now? I'm 26, so until I was 21, I lived in D.C., and then I moved to Boston to finish school, and I started working there.
All right.
And then a year and a half ago, I moved to Korea.
Oh, so it's just like a year and a half. It's almost like 16 months now. But you don't speak Korean at all, or like growing up, like were your parents speaking Korean a little?
So growing up, my parents speak Korean, but they didn't speak Korean with me, and I really didn't like Korean.
Oh,
yeah, so I really
did.
I don't. There are multiple reasons. It's mostly I really wanted to be accepted as an American.
Oh, all right.
I wanted someone to look at me the same way they would look at a white person.
Oh, right.
And so I really rejected everything Korean music, Korean language, except for food. I can't reject good food.
Okay. All right. What was the reason? Like, why did you feel like hating Korean that much? Was it because of you were bullied at school, or you saw some kids getting bullied? What was the
You know what? Growing up where I wasn't bullied.
All right.
Everything was diverse. My high school was like 30% Hispanic, 30% African American, and so it was very diverse. So it wasn't bullying as much as it was for me. I knew, and it doesn't bother me anymore, but I knew that when people look at me, they question first, is this first language English or is it another language? And I was like, all right, I don't speak any other languages. I only speak English. I only like American things. And actually, I grew up with a lot more American culture than most people.
All right, okay. Were you hanging out with like a lot of white kids?
I actually wasn't. So I was around a lot of Korean people, and I was around a lot of white people, but I was around a lot of people who grew up like me. They were second generation, or my parents say a kind of 2.5 because they were really young when they moved. And so I grew up like that, and then I just wanted, people to see me as an American.
But then, what was the turning point where you thought, okay, I should try, I should go back, check out the roots of my parents and stuff,
Yeah, so it actually has nothing to do with the roots of my parents. None of that. I was 18, I just graduated high school, and I was going to Australia I was in Australia for a 3-month service trip, and while there, it was very different because I was used to so much diversity growing up around DC. And I get to Australia, I'm in Western Australia in Perth, and I'm looking around, I'm like, there's only white people here and the occasional Aborigine. And I was like, oh my goodness, as much as I rejected Korean culture, I have a lot of Korean culture, no matter what I do. I can't help it, right? The Korean foods I know, the Korean culture aspects, the respect, and the older, younger relationship wasn't all the way there for me because I grew up very American, but I understood it and I knew it existed. And I got to Perth and I was like, oh my goodness, I am so different from a person who only grows up with that one culture.
Wow.
I got to Australia, like people are like, okay, you're American and you're also Korean.
All right.
And I was like, okay, I can't deny this anymore, I am. No matter what I do, I am.
See, this is a thing, like, I can't understand that because I know, like, I had another friend before. She was born in California, but her parents from Mexico, and she said, like, I always have this identity issue. And I was like, why is that? For me, you're like an American. Like, why do you have that? And then she was like, sure, you don't know, like, you can't understand the feeling. And I wouldn't really get it.
Yeah, it's different.
Okay.
Growing up in America, people wonder if you're American. Growing up somewhere or living when you live somewhere else, people see you as an American because you don't speak. Well, in Australia, I spoke their language, but I was, just in Hong Kong, and I don't speak any Chinese. And they're like, yeah, you're just an American.
Right. But then, in Korea, like, I know a lot of time people would, like, sometimes young kids who are not that exposed to, like, different cultures like this too, they always think, like, oh, American is somebody in their mind is a white person and who speaks English. So coming to Korea, like, you got this confidence, okay, I am Korean and I am who I am and I am an American. But then coming here, people might have said that, oh, you are not an American because you don't look that white, the image that people have.
Yeah, that's definitely a thing I have been told people encounter. I've never encountered that myself personally, but I definitely have seen, for me, people look at me like, you're Korean. And I'm like, I understand that you look at me, and yes, I look like you. I can't not look like you because ethnically we are the same.
How long did it take, and what were the problems you faced, like, while adjusting here?
I don't know how many problems, I would say problems, but definitely frustrations. So moving here, I was planning to move here for a while. And so there are a lot of different factors that delayed my move, but I had been coming here a lot. So the year before I moved to Korea, I actually was here for about probably at least 2 months total, 4 different trips. And during those trips, I prepared a lot. I looked into things. I asked a lot of people how I get things done. So when I moved here, I could just kind of set off running, as they say. But when I got here, man, stuff is confusing. So I've been growing up, not that my parents weren't around to help me or didn't have time. It wasn't anything like that. My personality is I like to do a lot of things myself. And so I moved to Boston and I rented all of my apartments myself and I took care of all of that. And, like when I turned 18, I signed up for my first credit card because I knew that was the thing to do if you want to build good credit with banks. And so that's the type of person I am. I moved to Korea and I'm like, how do you rent an apartment? What do you do? I don't know what I'm doing. I can't ask my parents because they've been in America for 40 years. They don't know how to do anything here anymore. And so I'm running around kind of blindly.
So now, like, it's been like, more than a year now. Still you feel some of the things you feel still like hard adjusting to?
There's definitely things that I adjust to, and there's some of them are like convenience things and they're better. Some of them are different and they feel worse to me. So like taxes. Oh my goodness, taxes here actually are really easy. In Korea, I get a thing in the mail that says, here, just fill in your bank account. This is your tax, and it's done.
Wow.
I was like, this is the greatest thing ever.
Do you feel like you're becoming so comfortable? Because Korea is known for like the convenience. You feel like you're getting too comfortable here and you don't feel like going back anymore?
Personally, I'm the type of person that America will always be my home. No matter where I go or where I live, I love everywhere I go. But there's something about where you've lived for so long and you know how things go. And I'm not all the way fluent in Korean. I speak and read definitely much more than most people, but because of that, it always feels like I'm living like next to my house. I know everything, but it's like right next to my house and I'm not all the way inside it. Like I'm living in my garage or something.
Okay. And my channel is about like dating and relationships. I do talk about like other social issues like today's the ones that I'm covering with you. But I wonder like what is your dating life in Korea? Because like I know it could be difficult because let's say there's a girl you really like, but then she speaks completely Korean, and then of course you can speak manageable, but then still there are times where you can express more of yourself when you speak English. So how does that go? Like, have you started dating someone or what? Like,
I have not actually been in a relationship with anyone since I've moved to Korea. I have gone on dates, and I actually dated someone who was barely spoke English while I was in America.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, and so
Was she Korean?
Yeah, she was Korean.
All right.
And so I've been through that relationship in America, and I purposely avoid it in Korea. Even though my Korean then was terrible. Her English was terrible. I don't know how we did that for the amount of time we did. But now my English was always okay. Now my Korean is actually okay, but I avoid it, and it's not because of the language barrier. What I have found is, for me personally, to date someone and get into a relationship with them, I need them to have lived somewhere abroad for at least a little bit, even if it was just a couple months.
Why is that so?
I think my awareness of other cultures, like coming from America and then living in Korea and learning how to understand that there are other cultures. It's hard to understand it as much when you haven't been there and been in where everything else is another culture.
I wonder, like, are there times when you got hurt, like when you came here?
Hurt like how?
Like, for example, like I was watching, before doing this interview, I was trying to do some research, like listening to other American Koreans who came to Korea. And then sometimes people would say, like, to some people, like, you are Korean, like, don't act like an American, or, you know, like, why are you speaking English? Like, you know, you're pretending, you're pretentious, you know,
Yeah.
it's like stuff like that. And they were like, literally this girl was crying, like, we're like, I'm not pretending. Like,
This is who I am.
Yeah, that's right.
This is
But
who I
then they think like we're lying or something, like we're trying to like reject or something. I don't know.
I think in my year and a half here, I've had someone say that once to me.
Okay.
Why are you speaking English? I actually, the only time people say it normally to me is a joke, and they're making fun. Or if like most of the people are Korean speakers, then of course I avoid English. But I think I've heard all these stories.
Okay.
You know, I've known lots of people who've lived in Korea coming with a similar perspective as me. I've read about it online in different forums and things like that. But I've never really experienced it. I always expected to experience it.
Do you now feel you might have identity issues later, because when you go back now you're like so Koreanized and everything, and then
Oh man, that's actually really funny. So I have a cousin who just moved back to America within the last 6 months.
Okay.
And he had lived in Korea for probably like 20 years.
wow.
Yeah, so
But he was born in America.
he was born in America.
Okay.
His parents are fairly American like mine. He moved here a little bit younger than me.
All right.
Got married here, had kids here, and then moved to America because he wanted his kids to grow up some in America because he's very American, and he also wanted them to go to school in America. And looking at that, he was like, you know, there's certain things that I miss about Korea, certain like conveniences, because it's so small in Seoul that, you know, there's just certain conveniences that they can do that you can't do in America, where even the smallest city outside of New York City, Manhattan, everything is pretty spread out. And, you know, they don't have that. But besides that, he's just pretty much American.
All right.
And I don't see myself lose. There's certain American tendencies that I still have while I'm in Korea, and I can't help it.
Is it like hard to like make like real friends? Like you said, hey, what's up? Like, I can have dinner, or like, I want to come over or something, right? Is it hard for you to make that kind of, you know, build that kind of friendship with the locals here?
Definitely, it's harder to make friends with native Koreans as a Korean American. Not so much for me, actually, but for other people. I think for me, I was around a lot of native Koreans always.
But last question, like in the end, like let's say people who want to come to Korea, I'm talking about like Koreans living in other countries, and this is gonna be, let's say, their first time. They're kind of nervous or worried about like, oh, what will happen and all. What's your message for them?
There are a lot of frightening stories out there, and it depends. I would say you have to understand yourself and your mental psyche.
Okay.
If you're more sensitive to things, you have to surround yourself with the right people from the bat. You have to come to Korea, and before you even come, you need to have people who can help you. Because you have to know yourself, right? It's not a weakness. It's not something where you should say, why am I like this? It's, I am like this. I'm more sensitive to change, and so before you come here, you need to try to find people who can help you when you get here. For me, right, I'm more kind of explorative and inquisitive, so coming here, I was like, I had been living on my own for already 4 or 5 years, and so coming here, I was like, it's just a new challenge. Korea's a very progressive, in many things they're super progressive, and then a lot of things they're super conservative, and it's really hard to believe that those two things exist next to each other, but they do. And you will get shocked if you've come from a place like Europe, if you're coming from a place like America one of the bigger cities.
Okay. But well, anyways, Elliot, thank you so much for your time today. I will be putting all the information about him in the description box below. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching this video today. And as Elliot mentioned, that regardless of his stay in Korea, he still feel like that he is not the part of the family. He's still kind of neighbor or somebody who lives in the garage. I really hope that this world becomes such a global village where no matter where you travel, you feel like home. But let me know what you guys have learned from this video. Please do let me know in the comment section below, and please do not forget to like, share, subscribe, and most importantly,
Smile.